Okay, at this point in the debate, it's going to be free-flowing. It's going to be back and forth exchanges, no time limits until the final 10 minutes of the debate, whenever we have 5-minute closing arguments from each side. Yeah.
What the Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act is trying to do is true that it's trying to give health care to people, although the health care that it's giving, you may check off the box for everyone, yes, they have health care, although the truth is that just because they have health care doesn't mean that's better health care. According to a study done in a book by John C. Goodman, who is the CEO of National Center for Policy Analysis, in 2012, he says, what Britons and Canadians, people who have nationalized healthcare, have is not insurance in any real sense of the word. What they have is an imperfect system of free care. In fact, the U.S. system is actually more egalitarian, which means it gives a better care for people than the systems of many other developed countries, with the uninsured in the United States getting more preventative care than the insured in Canada. Because basically, they have cited stats to us about the number who don't have technically insurance. They don't technically have insurance, except the government still gives basic health care for these people. And what Obamacare does is that it reverts almost all these people to Obamacare, and then it makes people pay practically a tax if they don't get it. So it's trying to revert everyone to this one system provided by the government, when really what we have right now is working out just fine. Because according to the study, and he's the CEO at a National Center for Policy Analysis, he says that the uninsured in the United States get better care than the insured in Canada and Britain. And the Obama, according to this article, has admittedly tried to frame Obamacare off of Canadian universalized health care. And trying to base that off it, we can look at the flaws of the Canadian health care and therefore kind of attach them back to here. And to show you kind of a ridiculous thing, Congress, even though they voted Obamacare in, actually voted to try to exempt themselves from Obamacare, which I think is kind of ironic because they want Obamacare to happen, although they realize that it's not going to be good for them. They're trying to stop that. So overall, the United States health care that we have right now may not check off the box for people being insured, although people will still get better health.
Okay, actually, the Obamacare bill was not based on Canadian healthcare. Canadian healthcare is universal healthcare, not the system that we have in America, which is a free market system. Also, you mentioned that the uninsured get better coverage than the insured do in Canada, and you said that the government helps these people. In what ways do they help?
What happens is that if a person needs to be treated inside an emergency room, if they're in a critical condition, then the hospitals and government they need to treat them. So what happens is that we aren't just turning away these people who absolutely need health and care and need to be saved, but making it so that the government provides the health care for everyone, which is what the Obamacare is trying to do. It's not the best way to do that.
How does enacting the Obamacare turn away people from the government?
No, I'm not saying it turns away people, although I am saying that overall it takes away freedom of choice that we have right now. Because what happens is that we have the choice. We have the choice which insurance company we want to go to. Right now we have the choice which insurance plan we want to have. Heck, we can even choose what doctor we want to go to or which hospital we want to go to. And with government healthcare, it takes away some of that freedom, and people need to be able to have that freedom. So true, people are being treated still, except overall, the current system's better.
If I could say, and what's your name again? Taylor. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names, Taylor. The proposal you're saying that uninsured Americans get better, specifically or more proliferated emergency room coverage, is sort of a misguided argument.
No, I'm not talking just about emergency care. I'm just talking about generally they get better care than.
Well, that's mostly focused on the fact that they get emergency room care, and the thing is, in a more socialized or in a more Affordable Care Act centric healthcare situation, these now newly insured people would be getting more regular checkups, in which they could have screenings for obviously preventative diseases, you can if you have a checkup and they say, oh, you're at risk for heart disease, or oh, you have a small tumor, you can treat those things at a cheaper and a much easier cost than having to rush in at the very last second when you're having a full-on heart attack or you've gone into shock or whatever happens with cancer. So while it may seem like Americans get more coverage through the emergency room system. The whole point of socialized healthcare is you don't need such an extensive emergency room system because people are getting regular routine checkups.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that because I actually have an article right here talking about kind of a Canadian healthcare horror story, which is talking about a woman who originally wanted to have checkups. Well, the government told them you need a checkup every other year for cancer, and she told them no, I want something every year, and they said no. So what happened is that she came to the U.S. and instead got a checkup every single year. And the first year that happened, which she wouldn't have gotten in the universalized healthcare like Canadian, she was diagnosed. In stage 1, she was able to be treated and was fine. But what the government's trying to do is that with the government, the people do not have the same freedom they have to be able to choose what they want, when they want it. And the thing is that paying for it, it is true that you do have to pay for it, except the thing is you can choose what you pay for. So that's why having a free choice system, private insurance is much better.
Well, first off, fortunately, we don't have a 2-year minimum on cancer checkups in the United States. That's not part of the affordable.
No, I was just giving an example.
Well, obviously that example is applied. Nevertheless, what you were saying about how, I'm assuming you're getting to the point that the Affordable Care Act sort of stifles economic choice and economic decisions to vastly alter people's current plans. Well, the thing about that is 94% of people under Obamacare have essentially the exact same plan, whether through an individual care or through employee care. Same doctor, same plan, same everything. I mean, they're not going to just get rid of doctors. That doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that?
I'm not saying
fantastic healthcare infrastructure. Second off, another thing that would promote competition is these things called health insurance centers that are set up by the state. And what they do is, you've ever seen those Progressive commercials? Where basically they have Allstate, Progressive, Geico, and stuff like that. Right. It shows comparative rates. The health insurance exchanges would show these competitive rates and would allow uninformed buyers to peruse through these and find the best option, stimulating competition in the economic sector.
Well, I'll just say one more thing. But actually, it is true that what the government does is that they do give regular checkups and stuff like this. Except what they're trying to do is they're trying to give basic care to people. Although statistically, one good thing about American healthcare is that we have more specialized doctors than other countries do. This is something that a lot of people overlook. Because what happens is that here's a stat in Canada, over half of all physicians are GPs, and GPs are general practitioners. So basically, that's going to be your family doctor that can treat a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a jack of all trades, basically. So in Canada, about half of all physicians are general practitioners. New Zealand, about half are GPs, and in Australia, about 2/3 are GPs. However, in the U.S., only 11% of those are GPs. So right now with this private insurance, what happens is it's a motivation for doctors to try to become more specialized. We have great doctors, we have great cardiologists, we have great neurosurgeons and stuff like that. And that's something that we may lose over time if we adopt a system like Canada or New Zealand or something like that. We have more general practitioners and less specialized care.
Well, obviously,
where is the founding of that coming from? Is it the type of coverage that they have in Canada, or is it just a general idea of?
Well, generally, when you have socialist healthcare, which is part of what Obamacare is doing, is that it's going to reduce the number of specialized doctors we have. Because if you look at trends in universalized healthcare and what Obamacare is trying to do, it kind of slowly degenerates the specialized.
Well, that's
I have a question. Follow-up. Do you have other trends from other countries or just Canada? Because
no, it's
Canada, New Zealand, Australia.
Well, that seems to veer more into the educational system of medical practice. And one of the nice things about America is that we actually do have a vast supply of medical colleges that actually specialize, that have great specialties in these specific fields. It's not necessarily that our healthcare stimulates a sort of specialization. It's our education system, like places like Johns Hopkins that help stimulate this medical specialization.
I have to disagree with you on that.
Well, going back to what you said about the health insurance exchanges, all the states, most people don't really know about this, but all the states had an opportunity to set up their own health insurance exchange, which is where each state will be able to set a base level, basically, of what their insurances need to offer, basically setting the baseline for health insurance. And the state can either do that or allow the federal government to directly come in and set up their own. Either way, it'll be the federal government controlling these health insurance exchanges. But the problem with that is that a lot of states did not do this, like they didn't meet the deadline. Conservative states, especially like Texas. And so now you have some chaotic system where some states have it, some states don't. And also it limits, like the purpose of these exchanges is to give you choices, but it doesn't really, it limits it because you have to have a certain quality, like, and it ends up being a lot of things that you don't necessarily need in your health insurance.
Honestly, I'm going to add on to something before y'all counter. This is something I know you're going to go into. You claim that the states are the ones that are still running this in a similar fashion to the ones like Obamacare, in a sense, correct? It's a national level, but it's run through the states, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Max, you said earlier, how many pages did you say that the Congress bill was? It was
About 9
normal font, or in the font that it's in, and then it's reduced by about a third. That's just the bill. That doesn't include the 18,000 pages of regulations on Obamacare. Why would we need 18,000 pages of regulations for each individual state? Each individual state could get that down to a minimum, even with your special font of cutting it by 30 or whatever the percent. It would be about 6,000 pages of entitlement or regulation pages. If it was truly run by each state, why would we have to cover everybody with that large of a document that I'm sure nobody fully reads and understands? And that's the scary part. Another thing, nobody fully understands the Obamacare bill. Whenever Congress passed this law, it was passed for $1 trillion in the American budget. Do you know what that number is at now? It's at $2.7 trillion. It has gone up by almost 270%.
That's not actually true.
That is,
the CBO estimated the ACA will have a net cost of $1.16 trillion. You're forgetting about the $500 billion in taxes, penalties that this bill would actually.
Those are savings, actually. The cost of the bill is 1.7 trillion. However, with new savings from provisions in the bill, the CBO has estimated that it will cost about 1.1 trillion.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting this 2.7 from.
Also, I would like to touch on Megan's point on this health insurance exchanges. You say that it will limit choice and freedom through these exchanges because these health insurance providers have to have special requirements. Well, those special requirements are actually things like pre-existing conditions and regulations on healthcare that will improve the quality of healthcare, which is not, like with the old system, there will be no regulation on making sure that these people will cover pre-existing conditions and not do some of these dubious acts that is.
If I may add on really quickly, the fact that certain states, specifically conservative states, weren't able to set up any sort of healthcare infrastructure in their state is pretty much their own fault. They were given time and time again. They were given extended deadline and extended deadline date. The deadline was extended what, 3 times? Around 3 times, I believe. So I mean, you can't really say, oh well, the federal government's control. You had an opportunity to control the thing, and you let it pass because you were in denial about the whole thing. Furthermore, the fact that you talked about the minimum coverage, there are essentially 10 things that this thing covers in the minimum coverage. But it's very loose, and it allows businesses and states to offer more flexibility with their coverage. So you can have a very bare-bone plan, you can have a freaking Cadillac plan. I mean, it allows for more flexibility, which allows for more economic diversity and economic competition.
Yeah.
Those are actually 2 points in our favor. I don't see what.
And I want to clarify on that specific thing with the state health exchanges. Those minimums that are set by the government are only if you are not under a private insurance plan provided either by your employer or something that you're paying for yourself directly out of your pocket. The minimums that the government has set is so that anyone that has fallen through those cracks that are not getting their insurance provided by their employer, which a lot of people do, and they don't elect to choose their own private insurance, then they will be backed up by the government insurance.
Which is why 94% of people aren't going to have to change their plan under Obamacare. We're caring about the 6% that don't have that opportunity.
I'm going to respond to Max really quick about the pre-existing conditions, and then I think Taylor and Megan have something to say to y'all. Max, on pre-existing conditions, I'm going to establish this first. It always sounds like the Republicans are the villains whenever we say we don't want to give everybody health insurance. It's giving everybody insurance, but at what quality? We already talked about that, though, so I won't really touch into it. It's just not the quality that we can do it if it's a free market system where everybody has a choice and we don't give government handouts to people, or we don't force people to buy it or have them pay a tax through their employers. but on pre-existing conditions. I'm going to explain what that kind of is. It's like, say you have cancer, and then you don't have health insurance. It's an extremely expensive thing to cover on your own. You want to go out and buy health insurance so that you don't have to pay for that entire treatment. Obamacare allows for that to happen. It's literally, take this for example, we all know what car insurance is. If you get in an accident, it helps split the coverage and everybody's happy. It's literally like getting into a car accident, calling up the car insurance industry and saying, I just got in an accident, I haven't been paying for this insurance, but I want to start now, so can you cover everything, and then I'll start paying? How does that
Except that is
make
a
sense?
completely wrong analogy, because under the individual mandate, people will be required to buy health insurance, which means that there will be no one that is going to be able to say, oh, I'm sick now, can you cover my insurance?
Exactly,
That's
that's
the
a
whole
problem,
point.
that's a problem under the old healthcare system there, but under the new healthcare system there, the fact that we already have.
But the problem with this new system is that if you encourage health insurance companies to pay for the insurance of people with pre-existing conditions, they're going to have to raise everyone's health insurance. So basically, you'll end up treating everyone like they're sick, because everyone's health insurance is going to go up
Actually,
to cover the cost of those who already are sick.
Actually, according to the CBO, insurance premiums will increase by 8%.
How?
Decrease.
Because
Where did you get that?
individual
How is
mandate,
this going to happen?
you're
Nice
talking
number.
about increasing the pool, like the pool will become higher risk because of the pre-existing conditions. However, you're not considering the fact that
There's not
you
gonna
have
be-
30
there's not gonna
million
be-
people.
Right.
You're going to have 30 million people who are going to now be covered, and you're going to have healthy people, generally people who are young, who will be paying into the system to pay for the pre-existing conditions.
Instead of having to pay back to pay forward, we're setting up a bank, we're setting up a pool already, an individual pool and a collective pool to help pay for these things.
Well, you're trying to frame it like that, except that's not really what it's going to be, because what happens is that, as I stated before, and you guys haven't really challenged the fact much, but I stated before that in the CEO National Center for Policy Analysis stated that the uninsured in the United States are getting more preventative care than the insured in Canada. We're not talking about ER care, we're talking about preventative care right here. And because just because we check off the box for someone that they may have health care, which is what Obamacare is trying to do, doesn't mean that they'll necessarily be getting good quality health care. Because right now, we're already getting good health care for what we're paying and stuff. We don't need to change it just so we can check off the box, that 50 million that doesn't technically have health care.
Well,
I would
fortunately,
like
we don't
to,
have Canadian
I would like
systems.
to address the point of quality that keeps coming up. You said that nations like Canada and Britain, I believe you also mentioned, and other nations implement healthcare systems that go far beyond our own in terms of state regulation of the industry. You said Canada does offer worse care, right?
In respect to worse care than
That's
No, I'm saying that according to this I'm saying that according to this study that's been done, the uninsured in the United States are getting more preventative care than the insured in Canada. That's what I said.
well, the metrics that I've seen state that Canada equals or exceeds our survival rates for pretty much everything. All conditions except for heart disease, which has to do with the method that they use. Britain admittedly does fall slightly behind, but nations like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Japan, France as well, all have wonderful healthcare systems. They pay less, healthcare systems are very popular, and they have better outcomes.
Furthermore, people have probably heard the statistic time and time again, but it's been stipulated that America is the 37th best healthcare system.
According to what study?
What study is that? Do you guys know?
Probably the World Health Organization
I've
what you're
heard
talking about.
Yeah, that's-
Okay, well actually that is a very contested study. I've done some research on the World Health Organization study, which did rank America 37th, except some opponents of the study have been saying that it rates certain things. It looks at only certain factors, and those factors do not put America in a good light. They're only looking at a few factors which skews the study and ranks it according to things that.
Well, could you specify which factors these are?
I have an article on my iPod. If you'd be fine for me to get that up, and I can.
Oh yeah, sure. We can talk about something else.
Okay, I would
Do you guys
actually
think-
like to consider, I think there's still a fundamental difference in our understanding about this preventative care issue. I think that, you're talking about, for instance, you gave the example of the cancer checkups. Okay, one thing that we had said earlier, but then never got squashed by all our other comments, was that as far as is in the Affordable Care Act, there is no maximum number of preventative health checkups that you can get. So you're saying that, okay, by implementing this Affordable Care Act, all of a sudden we'll go into this awful Canadian healthcare system. But hold on, let me finish my point. But when you do not, when you don't take into consideration the fact that our bill is written differently in the Canadian Health Center, it might have been based off of it. There might be fundamental principles that we're trying to provide, but it's not written exactly like the Canadian health system. And so when you're saying that the healthcare quality will fall because we won't have preventative healthcare, that preventative healthcare still exists. It's only if people are relying on the government healthcare that they might there might be some other stipulations, but they're still going to be covered by their employer. If they're employed, if they have a job and their employer offers healthcare insurance, then they will have those company that employer is connected with. They will still have all those benefits. And again, we bring up the same point that 94% of people are not going to be changing, so they will still receive all that same amount of preventative healthcare as you're highlighting.
And then, so I'd like to ask you a question. Am I correct that you said that that we're not taking away the amount of preventative care that we have, that because the government will provide it?
Yes.
Okay, and then, so do you think that the government will deny healthcare, or will deny preventative care to some people because the government, or do you think that the government will hand it out to everyone who asks for it, like any time? Because the government does have to go through certain checks and stuff in order for people to get through.
Well, obviously there's certain checks in the system. I mean, like in situations like, when you're giving drugs to someone, you're giving like Vicodin and painkiller or something, you need to make sure that person isn't like, an offender of these drugs. That makes sense. I mean, your system does that just as much as ours does. What our system does, however, is it doesn't have pre-existing conditions, but that's not necessarily.
I'm going to say something that Ellen said before. Ellen, you said something about it lets employers keep their same healthcare system that they have right now, and then it forces everybody else to get the system as well, right?
I said, I'm confused by your wording. I can restate. I said that the employers will, if they're still staying with their insurance company that they're connected with previously before the Affordable Care Act is even in place, then all of their employers will still be under that insurance. They were part of that plan originally. Some people even deny their employers health care and take on their private insurance. That's their own choice. So all of that will still be available under this plan.
Now the thing is in business and companies with over 50 employees, which is pretty much a very large majority of businesses besides little small mom and pop shops that you see, they're going to have over 50 employees. And then at that line, they're then forced by Obamacare to pay or to give out health insurance to all of their employees working 30 hours or more. This has multiple effects. This cuts down people from wanting to keep their employees under 30 hours so that people aren't able to grow and expand in their jobs because the companies are going to, I didn't say this before, I'm sorry. If they don't buy Obamacare or cover it for their employees, they're forced to pay a tax or a penalty, as you guys like to call it, or a tax as the rest of America likes to call it. And then this tax is generally, I think, I can't remember the statistic, but it is less than paying for the actual health insurance. So what this does, 8% less. So then it's 8% tax. And then Obamacare runs, I think, around $1,200 a month for any general employee. And so what this does is companies are going to say, we would much rather pay this tax than force our employees to get the health insurance that Obamacare is forcing us to buy. So then not only do the companies lose money, but then nobody's getting more health insurance.
And then what this also does is that they may technically be saying that companies do technically have a choice whether to give private insurance or not. Except the thing is that what a company is trying to do is that a company companies are private, and what a company is trying to do is trying to make the most money. That's the goal of the company. And if a company sees that it can pay a fraction of the price of what it's paying before to get Obamacare, well, what happens is that it's incredibly expensive for people to get health care without a company paying for it. So it's going to be hard so almost all the companies are going to choose to buy their employees Obamacare. So all this talk technically not forcing people to get Obamacare, it's definitely coercion with that tax that they have set up.
Okay, well, three things. First off, I don't think that while it is true that the end-all goal of a corporation is to make profit, I don't think that you should necessarily suggest that companies don't give any sort of care about their employees. I mean, a healthy employee is a happy and productive employee. A lot of companies see that investment that could potentially occur from large amounts of health care. And another thing, furthermore, is that a lot of corporations that are already out there, a lot of companies already have healthcare standards and healthcare systems and health benefit systems that far exceed the paltry idea of Obamacare that they actually have a much nicer coverage, and so these companies would see absolutely no change in their system. The only ones that would are companies that essentially don't give their employees any sort of health benefits at all. And the nice thing about that is even if those companies or corporations, take off, pay that fine and don't pay for any of these people, then there are these individual tax credits. Basically, say like a family of four, somewhere around $90,000, $88,000 per year income. That's around my family. They can get a individual family tax credit, and so basically, it doesn't prevent people from getting any coverage, and there's really not a loss in that scenario, except that the corporation has to pay a little bit more for being a bad corporation.
You do realize that the businesses with 50 or more employees will receive a 35% federal subsidy to help offset those costs, and that the same policy has been implemented in Massachusetts, but employers have not been dropping their employees' health plans. And
furthermore, suggesting that under 50 employees is simply a mom and pop organization.
Okay, my question to you, Max. Why should we encourage the government to subsidize things? Like, if we can have the companies afford it by their own, then why shouldn't they be able to? Why should we have the government spend even more money subsidizing something that they're the ones basically making that a sense either? But, okay, subsidy, okay.
Money you give to a corporation.
Basically, like, if you can't afford health insurance at a certain level, I think you said 133% of the national poverty level.
133 to 400%.
Yeah, okay, so you get a subsidy for your health insurance, which is just basically money from the government for your insurance. But you mentioned Obamacare in your introduction, and during the election, they compared Obamacare a lot to the new Obamacare plan. And while it is similar, it's also very different. Obamacare is, I really like Obamacare. It's brilliant. It is a great idea. It is on a state level. Massachusetts had a 93% rate of people who were insured before Obamacare. Under Obamacare, they now have 99% of all people are insured. That, obviously there are a lot of different factors into that, but the basic thing is everyone loves Obamacare. 88% are still really satisfied with it, and a lot of people have the insurance. They're getting good health care, and it's just been very, very successful. Also, it didn't even raise their budget, but this is on a state level. The federal level with Obamacare is going to raise our budget by a lot. The amount of money spent on Obamacare is ridiculous, and it takes money out of important things like Medicare and Medicaid.
Megan, sweetie?
Yeah,
Let us not digress the name calling. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize sweetie was a slur.
They are girlfriend boyfriend, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay, so you are.
Yeah, okay. Well, first off, Megan, female. You said that Obamacare is a great solution and it's a great statewide
Yeah,
run.
for Massachusetts.
Yes,
Obviously, really
Megan? And the nice thing about Obamacare is through those state-run, health insurance exchange and a lot of other those minimum benefits and stuff, Obamacare gives a lot of specific, mostly Republican states, had to basically put their middle finger up to President Obama and said, no, I will not follow this, then it has to go under federal control, otherwise people are not getting this coverage. Furthermore, this is something with the previous statement you guys gave. The idea that under 50 employees is simply a mom and pop organization is ridiculous. A mom and pop organization consists of two people, mom and pop. I mean, you go to any sort of small restaurant, independent run restaurant, independent bookstore, independent anything, something that's not a chain or a franchise, and you will see that there's definitely not going to be 50 people running that thing. That's a bit of a ridiculous claim. A lot of small businesses are going to be, benefactors through this whole idea.
But then there's going to be a line drawn where they don't want to go over 50, and that's going to discriminate job growth, company growth, making more money, making their small mom and pop, or whatever you want to call it, small business into a growing franchise.
Well, fortunately, the thing about 50 employees is that's such an overestimate that any sort of independent running franchise will not have to deal with that. Heck, even a 2 or 3 store chain is probably not going to have to deal with that to, a magnificent degree. It mostly involves, larger companies.
Except we're straying off topic here to what Megan's main argument was. And her main argument right there was that Obamacare worked well because it was designed by the state and for the state. Because what happens is that what Obamacare is trying to do is largely ensure the state has some leeway in what it can do, except largely what it's trying to do is it's trying to give a basic healthcare system for the nation. And the America is huge. One system cannot work perfectly for every single state. And true that they have some leeway, except it is nowhere near the infinite leeway that we have that if every single state designed their own healthcare system, then the state would have what is best for them. I mean, because having state is ultimately what's best, because the state can choose what's better for the state.
I'm going to add on to that before I rebuttal. There's a large difference between a federal and a state level run. States are considered the laboratories of democracy. They are what makes America so great. We don't need to force everybody to do the same thing. That's the decline in the ladder of growth and individuality and making us who we are, a free nation with freedom. Where are we going with that?
Make it go.
Hang it.
You said it, go.
Oh, and so then the closer it is to you, the better it generally tends to work. Ideally, in a perfect world, for us at least, we would like to have it be a county-run, a county-run healthcare system where the county specifically, for its people of, whether it be a small 1,000-person county or Houston's county, whatever that is, like 5 to 10 million, whatever people. And if a state wants to go off and prove how great they can do Obamacare or a system like it in any other state, let them go out and prove how much better or how much worse it is. If they fail, it's not the nation and my money being taken away from. It's the state and the people who voted for that. Go.
Okay, well, sorry, Nathan, you get that one. That's a good idea in theory. That's a great idea in theory, and I would support that wholeheartedly in theory. But the problem is we live in reality, and the thing is, certain states. I'm not going to get into name calling here because that's rude. But certain more Republican states wouldn't necessarily take too kindly to the idea of any sort of even guidance from the federal government. Which is why we need stuff like just minimum requirements. And these are paltry minimum requirements. We're not requiring that everyone is able to get plastic surgery or anything like that. These are the bare minimum of coverage, and it's very, very vague in its wording, and it's very, very vague in its requirements of implementation, specifically for these 10 minimums. So that allows a lot of flexibility to states if they care to take plan, if they care to comply nicely with Obamacare. The only problem is when a state decides not to follow certain guidelines, certain ideas, and then we need to make sure that the people in there are getting at least some semblance of decent care. It would be nice to have a state-run or county-run healthcare system, but that kind of gets into the human rights issue if one county decides that no sense of healthcare at all ever period should exist.
And then I'd just like to put a quick pause on this and go back to what we were talking about earlier. They were talking about how America has insufficient health care compared to other countries according to the World Health Organization report. And I pulled up my article on here, which is an analysis, again, by John C. Goodman, who's the president of the National Center at the National Center for Policy Analysis. He was criticizing the WHO report, and he talks about how the WHO report takes basically almost random factors, like for instance, or based off of 5 factors, which ranks certain things higher than others. And like for instance, the United States ranked first in responsiveness of the system, but the United Arab Emirates ranked first in the distribution of responsiveness. It just looks at such almost random factors of it that, and I have the other factors here if you guys would like to find out what they are. It chooses almost such random factors that it almost produces a random result. It's not necessarily
Why random? How is that?
Yeah, I'm
Give us the 5 factors.
The 5 factors.
Because
A, the level of health. B, the equal distribution of health indicators by income or ethnic group. B, C, the responsiveness of the system to its patient's needs. C, D, the distribution of responsiveness by income or ethnic group. The fairness of the countries and the fairness of the country's finances.
So it's searching for like more of an egalitarian.
Exactly.
It's who has the best coverage for everyone. Which
is not what America's health system is based off of. It's not trying to give exactly. It's not trying to give.
Well, I'd like to posit that that's exactly what we're trying to fix. If you're saying that
I'm saying it's better the way it is right now.
Okay, so I think what our side is arguing is that is exactly what we're trying to fix with this healthcare bill. Those 5 random factors that you said, especially the distribution along all the different demographics and the level of health and patients' needs, I think that's exactly what a lot of people, and I'd say in our audience, end up caring about, especially when you're on your own providing for yourself. That's exactly what you need met. Okay, patients' needs and getting all your exams, getting all of those things that you are required to make sure that you're a healthy person and a productive employee, and all those things. Those aren't random.
For instance, let me give like a hypothetical example, if that's possible. You guys okay with that? We have 3 minutes. Just 3 minutes left until we go and close in. Okay, well, let's say there's hypothetical stand, that's the country, right? And there's one guy who gets absolutely fantastic coverage. You know, he gets triple bypasses handed to him by little chairs and stuff like that, and then no one else has health coverage. Now, we can say that that's not egalitarian and that doesn't matter, but does that place necessarily have a good healthcare system? You could say it does based off that one guy, but you really need to look at egalitarian system. We are a country of the people, by the people, and for the people, and I believe that we should provide healthcare to all of us.
Your definition of egalitarian is different. Your definition of egalitarian makes sure that everyone gets essentially the same system, the same care. But except according to another study, of course, it says the United States healthcare system is more egalitarian than countries with nationalized healthcare. Because what nationalized healthcare does is true, it gives everyone the exact same healthcare, except it doesn't necessarily give everyone amazing same healthcare. It gives everyone mediocre same healthcare.
The biggest problem with Obamacare is that we have a very, very diverse nation. We have states like Texas that have problems with illegal immigration, and we have states like Massachusetts who were already well off before Obamacare came along. And Obamacare is a blanket solution. It puts all of our states under one system and says, okay, this might work.
That was a theory that you had, but theories don't work.
We had a theory.
Theories don't work.
Can I please But Texas has 47% who are uninsured. And we're going to be under the same system as Massachusetts, who have 98% insured. And we need a different system than Massachusetts. Utah needs a different system. We all need a different system that will fit our specific needs, like illegal immigration, things like that, that are going to be different for every single state.
The states were given that opportunity. They were given the leeway to create their own system.
But that didn't allow for
except you're going off topic there. We're not talking about Republic. We're not talking about liberal versus Republican.
A blanket solution, and we offered a solution.
You're talking about the Affordable Health Care Act, and that's what we're doing.
America!
We're going to take like a minute to gather. We're going to give closing arguments. And then at the end, I know I have to take off at 5:30, so I'm kind of in a rush. And I know at least one of you does. At the end, we're going to have an open forum. If y'all have any questions that you want to ask, whoever can stay, we're going to stay and answer some questions. Not really argue, just kind of
just,
a minute together. We're gonna discuss for a minute. Okay, we're gonna close off. We're gonna give 5 minutes to each side. I don't know what they're doing. We're just going down the line, and we're gonna all say something. Y'all started it, so we're gonna finish up.
I'll start. Oh yeah, we're starting. Sorry, yeah, did not understand. Okay, so starting off, one of the fundamental things when we went to this debate was we expected actually to have some type of alternative plan mentioned, because when you're going to propose that you're repealing some type of legislation, then there should be some type of statement to be brought up that, okay, this is something better that we should offer, or this is what we think would be a better plan, or this is not just attacking a proposed bill. Okay, when they go and speak about these types of things in Congress, you always have to have a plan and some type of action to follow up with. So this is one reason why we should win the debate, because there's no alternative presented here today. Moving on, the other thing is that this plan provides, they're still trying to argue that it decreases freedom of choice for Americans in health insurance plans. However, we are still trying to get across the point, and it wasn't really getting across, that this leniency still exists. Okay, if you want to stay with your employer's insurance, that is up to you. If you want to go seek out other private insurance, that is up to you. And it's actually easier now with the Affordable Care Act because of these exchanges where they made the analogy like the progressive commercial. It's easier to understand what these other plans are offering because of the Affordable Care Act. It is written out that they have to be explicit and more direct for consumers and the general populace to understand. So that also exists. You have more choice and actually easier access to those choices. You can still stay with your insurance plans. Nothing is being taken away from you. The only thing that's being added is that there's now a greater net for people that are not getting insurance through their employer or through personal choice with their, not personal choice, like their private plans. They will be provided insurance, and that is a very big deal. The United States is actually one of the only westernized countries that does not provide health care for its citizens. Another thing is they mentioned that they're going off on this tangent about the state laboratory and why it should be given into a state or actually county level. Well, I'd like to propose that that did happen. We had the Romney plan in Massachusetts, and they even said that was a brilliant plan. They liked that plan, and so that was implemented, and it has done well. And so when that is the basis of this Affordable Care Act plan, then that is the reason that they even said themselves, using the state laboratories to see if it fails, well, then that's their own citizens doing. It succeeded. It is now on a national level, and there's a reason why your congressman from all 50 states voted for that. Not unanimously, but there's a reason why your representatives voted for it and decided to put it into our U.S. law. Another thing, in general, what the Affordable Care Act provides, I think, when they've done surveys on this, when you're interviewed on the streets and they say, okay, would you like these things to be provided? The majority of the answers are yes. I would like no discrimination against pre-existing conditions. I would like my medications to be provided, at a lower cost. I would like all these things that come with insurance, and that is something that this Affordable Care Act is providing to more citizens than we've ever had in our history. And that's a very important, I guess, groundbreaking effort for that to have actually taken place and implemented in our society. Furthermore, where we've been getting our statistics, the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, is where where most of economists, when you're dealing with these policies and you have your Treasury and all your different organizations, they get a lot of reports from the CBO. The Congressional Budget Office acquires reports how do they often think about it? It's like quarterly or quarterly. All these things, all the predictions they make is how we run our U.S. policies off of, and that is why we should be going to the CBO for our estimates and predictions on how well this will be implemented, on estimates about how this will affect our budget, our deficit in the long run. And the CBO estimated that Obamacare plan lowers the federal deficits by $109 billion over 10 years. So it's actually a decrease in our deficit with this plan being enacted, not an increase, not any,
That's actually not what it says. I'm sorry. We don't get the wrong thing. Actually, what the CBO estimated was that HR 6079, which is of John Boehner's repeal of Obamacare Act, which I'm sure you guys know about. What the CBO and the JCT estimated that due to all the collapse of the infrastructure and all the basically just jerk back onto the rate that would come forth from repealing Obamacare, that would cause a net increase of federal budget deficits of $109 billion over 2013 and 2022. So you can't really say that Obamacare is, economically the wrong thing for this nation, because repealing it would be even worse.
Okay.
Any other
Time's
comments?
up. We're all going to go.
55% to 60% of doctors surveyed usually say that that the Affordable Health Care Act should be replaced. Now, they say this for multiple reasons, mainly the ACO and the bill. Now, the ACO is the Accountable Care Organization, where treatment decisions that they make are monitored by electronic systems. They don't like that. Then medical school bills run for about $180,000. Now, with the Affordable Health Care Act, they're getting a total from an EKG of $208, when it used to be 2 years ago $560, causing less doctors to go into that specific field because they're going to make less money and have trouble paying their loans.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but we have $16 trillion in debt. That is a ridiculous amount of debt. And we're giving more, this bill will give more power to the federal government that's already given us this much debt on all of us. So why would we do that? They can't even handle the post office, and we want them to run our health insurance. I'm just saying. Also, this Obamacare Act establishes a board of 15 people, not elected, they're just appointed, that makes all the overarching decisions of Obamacare. Is that democratic in any way? Not really. Ellen mentioned that we don't have a plan. Well, our plan is to let the states decide. Massachusetts studied what they needed for a year. They brought in a panel of experts. They knew what they were doing. Obviously, it's working. That's what all the states need to do. And if they don't want to do it, well, I guess that's their decision. But they should have the power to change what goes on in their state with their people. Traditionally, healthcare has been a state issue, and it should remain so, because that will be the best way, most efficient way to allow everyone to have access to healthcare.
Because, going back to that, they attacked us in their last speech by saying that that we said that Obamacare is good and work well in Massachusetts, and that it'll work well for our whole country. Except we do think that Obamacare worked well in Massachusetts because it was written by Massachusetts for Massachusetts. What we need, though, is that there may be better healthcare plans for each state. Each state needs to come up with its own healthcare plan again, because if each state comes up with its own healthcare plan, then it'll know what's best for its state and what's best for its people, and be able to personalize that and be able to get the best outcome. And they were talking about how we still have a choice about whether or not to have Obamacare, and except the thing is that the technical choice may be there, except it's definitely coercion, because the government imposes a fee on you, and that's not fair for government to impose a fee on you because you don't buy the government standardized healthcare. But that's going against complete American liberties. Okay, great.
All right. Just finishing up what Taylor said, and Obama in his campaign, he promised not to increase taxes on the middle class. It may not be a tax by your definition, but that's what it is. It's more money by a percentage for the people. That's a tax. And then Ellen, I'd like to say, I'm actually very sad that we weren't able to bring up our plan that we had, because it's a state level plan, but it's not. We believe that we need the healthcare system needs to change. We don't need an entirely new system. We don't need to wipe the slate clean and restart. That's not what we need. We need a healthcare reform. The system that we have right now is a relatively good system if we make some small minor changes, like making private health savings accounts. What that is it's your money put into a bank account for you to be able to use your money. It's like setting it up through a healthcare provider, but it's not their money. They're not losing anybody. It's just their system. And what you do is, if anytime that you need to go out and go to the doctor, get a checkup, get lab tests done, whatever, it's your money. You're going to be more health conscious, more money spending conscious on what you're going to do, and not go out and get what's it called? It's over too many. I'm completely blanking.
So it's insurance. Your
Yeah.
insurance plan
Okay.
is insurance.
And then one more.
Just the definition of insurance.
Okay. Overall, why we should win this Obamacare thing, the sad part is that they don't even know what the whole bill is. I don't know what the whole bill is. There's 6,000 pages of regulations made. Nobody knows the full plan. It keeps changing. It went from, no matter what y'all say it is, there was an increase from what it was passed in Congress. It went from $1 trillion, it went up. I don't know the exact number from the source that I read. a really reliable source. It was 2.7 trillion. I would be surprised if it was off by a huge margin. Okay, that was our debate. I'm going.
Yay, high school debate. Yeah. Hype, hype, hype and excitement. Look at these caring, knowledgeable faces.